What is your basis for saying that Senator Graham is President Putin's? Have you ever talked to President Putin?
I don't recall that tweet and the story.
Well, I've got it. It's right here. It's right here.
I'm happy to look at the tweet, and I'm happy to write you, explain that. I don't know what that has to do with climate change.
Well, it has to do with your credibility. My aunt's Facebook page has more credibility than you do.
This so-called Democratic expert came and prepared a lecture about climate change, but Kennedy came prepared with receipts. In less than 5 minutes, he shredded the man's credibility, exposing years of partisan tweets, false accusations, and flat-out hypocrisy. And when Kennedy asked which Supreme Court justice is bought, the witness froze. No answer, no accountability, just silence. But that wasn't even the knockout punch. Kennedy's closing line left the entire chamber speechless, and I'll play it for you in full. Stick around, because this isn't just a viral moment. It's a masterclass in how you shut down arrogance with facts. Follow me if you believe the Senate needs more Kennedys and fewer political pretenders.
Professor Painter, on May 5th of this year, you put out a tweet. You said, I'm going to quote, "There are some things money can't buy. For everything else, there's the Supreme Court." Would you tell me which members of the Supreme Court you believe are bought?
I was particularly concerned at that point when I posted that tweet.
I understand, but if you could, I've got really limited time, and I apologize for interrupting. Just tell me which members of the court you are bought.
I did not think that Justice Clarence Thomas should be failing to disclose his trips on a billionaire's
Do you think
yacht
he's
and
bought?
airplane.
Do you think he's bought?
I believe that there is grave risk.
Do you think he's bought?
I said there is grave risk.
Do you think he's bought?
To the confidence of the American people in our Supreme
Well, if
Court.
you don't think he's bought, why did you say it?
I said
Yes,
that
you said members of the Supreme Court are bought. You're here testifying as an expert for my Democratic friends, and you're saying the members of the Supreme Court are bought?
I said when the American people feel that way, when we have Supreme Court justices
feel that way?
on yachts and in planes of billionaires and not being disclosed.
Anybody besides Justice Thomas you think is bought on the Supreme Court?
I believe that the court needs to clean
Anybody
up
besides
its
Justice
act.
Thomas?
I'm not going to go through each
I mean,
justice.
you tweeted it.
I tweeted the way the American people feel.
Did you mean it when you tweeted it?
And I stand by that tweet. This Supreme Court of the United States needs to clean up its
Let me
act.
ask you a couple others here, because you've on September 17, 2020, you tweeted, "It looks like Putin's favorite senator could lose," referring to Senator Lindsey Graham. Could you tell me your evidence for saying that Senator Graham is President Putin's favorite senator?
I don't recall that tweet and the story.
Well, I've got it. It's right here. It's right here.
I'm happy to look at the tweet, and I'm happy to write you, explain that. I don't know what that has to do with climate change.
Well, it has to do with your credibility. Did you say, what is your basis for saying that Senator Graham is President Putin's? Have you ever talked to President Putin?
I have not talked to President Putin, and I would be happy to go look at the tweet and look at the story that I tweeted out and what Senator Graham had said in that context. You know, this is something
you say all this stuff. For example, you're here as an expert for my Democratic friends, and you say all this stuff. You called on September 16, 2023, a professor at the University of Chicago, very distinguished professor, Brian Leiter. You called him a racist. Can you explain to me why you think he's a racist?
I remember a series of tweets with him. He's a Marxist who put out a number of statements attacking African Americans and women. And he also was raising money for someone who had called the police on a black student for sleeping in the common room, and now has a woke KKK Smug.com website attacking
That's
me.
fair enough.
So
Fair enough.
I will just say one thing, that I learned in high school debate, that when you have no argument, you simply change the subject.
All right. On October 15th of 2020, you said Lindsey Graham is soliciting cash payments in return for voting on a Supreme Court nomination. What evidence, that's a pretty bold statement, Professor. What evidence do you have for alleging that Senator Graham was taking cash in return for one of his votes?
I don't recall that specific tweet,
Here it
but
is,
I
right here.
do.
Here it
I
is.
do recall. And I
Do you think he was taking cash for one of his votes?
I have received campaign.
Do you think he was taking cash for one of his votes?
I'm answering your question, Senator. I have received solicitations from both political parties.
Do you think Lindsey Graham was taking
hearings
cash
for
for one of his votes? It's a simple question,
I have
Professor.
received cash, solicitations for cash on my email. And yes, from both political parties in connection with Supreme Court confirmation votes.
Well, I'm out of
It's
time,
wrong.
but let me just say for the record,
It's wrong.
my aunt's Facebook page has more credibility than you do. I could spend the rest of the day reading your quotes where you make allegations against people and you can't defend them.
You've said nothing about climate change. You quoted everybody from a Marxist
Senator
to
King.
all sorts of other people. This has absolutely nothing to do with the topic of the hearing, Senator.
Senator King.
All right, let's break this down. Professor Painter showed up to testify as a climate change expert. But instead of science, what Senator Kennedy exposed was a trail of political bias and reckless statements. Kennedy started by reading a tweet from Painter, where he claimed the Supreme Court was bought. Kennedy asked him directly, which justices are bought? And what did he do? He dodged, stumbled, and refused to name a single one. Then came another, a tweet calling Lindsey Graham Putin's favorite senator. Kennedy pressed him for evidence. The man had none, not a shred. It got worse. Kennedy brought up another tweet accusing Graham of soliciting cash for votes on Supreme Court nominations. Again, zero proof. And after all that, Kennedy delivered the line that blew up the internet. My aunt's Facebook page has more credibility than you do. That wasn't just humor. That was truth dressed as comedy. Kennedy exposed how far the left will go to platform so-called experts, who are nothing more than political mouthpieces. The lesson here? If you're going to lecture the Senate on credibility, you'd better bring some of your own. Because when you're sitting across from John Kennedy, the truth always comes out.